For decades, Chuck Norris built a reputation that went far beyond his action films. He wasn't just seen as a tough on-screen fighter, but as someone who stood for discipline, respect, and quiet strength. Unlike many celebrities, he rarely engaged in public drama or controversy. His calm demeanor and controlled presence became part of his identity, making him almost myth-like in the eyes of fans. But as time passed, stories began to surface about moments where even Norris reached his limit. Not loud confrontations or explosive arguments, but subtle tensions and philosophical differences that revealed a more human side of him. These weren't tales of hatred, but rather reflections of where his values clashed with others. And in those moments, his silence often spoke louder than any words ever could. A generational clash with Shia LaBeouf. When Shia LaBeouf and Chuck Norris reportedly worked on the same project, it symbolized more than just two actors collaborating. It represented two very different approaches to craft. Norris came from an era where preparation, punctuality, and respect for the process were everything. LaBeouf, known for his intense and often unconventional style, brought a more spontaneous energy. For some, that kind of unpredictability is creativity in motion. But for Norris, it may have felt like a departure from discipline. There were no public arguments or dramatic fallout, just a quiet distance that formed between them. Norris chose to step back rather than engage, reflecting his long-held belief in maintaining composure. The contrast between them highlights how different generations in Hollywood often define professionalism in very different ways. The philosophy divide with Steven Seagal. The tension between Steven Seagal and Chuck Norris is often discussed within martial arts circles. Both men built careers around combat skills and cinematic action, yet their philosophies appeared to differ greatly. Norris has always emphasized humility and continuous learning, while Seagal cultivated a more self-assured and outspoken public persona. Over time, comments and comparisons made in interviews contributed to a sense of rivalry, though it never escalated into anything physical. Instead, it became an example of how ego and perception can influence public narratives. In the martial arts world, respect is often valued above all else, and any perceived deviation from that can create lasting impressions. Their dynamic reflects how even individuals with similar backgrounds can interpret the same discipline in very different ways. From admiration to distance with Jean-Claude Van Damme. In the early days of his career, Jean-Claude Van Damme looked up to Chuck Norris as both a role model and a source of inspiration. At that time, Norris had already established himself as a respected figure in martial arts and film. Their paths crossing seemed like the beginning of a promising connection. However, as Van Damme's fame grew, so did the pressures and challenges that often come with success. Stories from that era suggest that differences in work habits and priorities created a gap between them. It wasn't a dramatic falling out, but more of a gradual distancing. Norris, who consistently valued discipline above all else, likely found it difficult to relate to the unpredictability that sometimes surrounded Van Damme's career during that period. A cultural contrast with Alec Baldwin. The contrast between Alec Baldwin and Chuck Norris wasn't born on a movie set, but in the broader cultural landscape. Norris has long been vocal about his personal beliefs, often emphasizing faith, tradition, and conservative values. Baldwin, on the other hand, became widely recognized for his political satire, particularly through his portrayal of Donald Trump on Saturday Night Live. For some audiences, this was simply entertainment, a form of humor rooted in exaggeration. For others, including Norris's supporters, it represented something more serious. While neither actor directly engaged in a personal dispute, their differing perspectives became part of a larger national conversation about media, politics, and the role of entertainment in shaping public opinion. Respect and legacy with Bruce Lee. The relationship between Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris is often misunderstood as a rivalry, when in reality it was rooted in mutual respect. Their iconic fight scene in The Way of the Dragon became one of the most celebrated moments in martial arts cinema. However, audiences often blurred the line between fiction and reality, turning their on-screen battle into a never-ending debate about who would win in real life. Norris consistently spoke highly of Lee, acknowledging his innovation and influence on martial arts worldwide. The so-called rivalry was largely created by fans and media narratives rather than any genuine conflict. It serves as a reminder of how public perception can sometimes overshadow the truth of a relationship. Ideological differences with Michael Moore. When it comes to public discourse, few figures spark as much debate as Michael Moore. Known for documentaries like Fahrenheit 9/11, Moore has built a career on challenging political systems and societal norms. Chuck Norris, meanwhile, has used his platform to express a different set of beliefs, particularly around personal freedoms and traditional values. Their opposing viewpoints highlight a broader conversation within society, where individuals interpret the same issues through entirely different lenses. While their disagreement never turned personal in a direct sense, it reflects how public figures can become symbolic of larger ideological divides. In many ways, their dynamic is less about individual conflict and more about the ongoing dialogue between contrasting perspectives in modern culture. When values shape perception, at the heart of all these stories lies a common thread: values. For Chuck Norris, discipline, respect, and consistency were never just professional tools. They were guiding principles for life. Whenever he encountered situations or individuals that seemed to challenge those principles, he responded not with confrontation, but with distance. This approach may not create headlines, but it reveals a quiet form of strength. It also shows how personal values can shape the way we interpret others' actions. What one person sees as creativity, another may see as chaos. What feels like confidence to some may come across as arrogance to others. These differences don't always lead to conflict, but they do influence how relationships evolve over time. The human side of a legend. In the end, these moments don't diminish Chuck Norris's legacy. They humanize it. Behind the action hero persona is someone who, like anyone else, navigates differences in personality, belief, and behavior. Not every disagreement needs to become a public feud, and not every clash requires resolution. Sometimes, people simply move in different directions. What stands out most is how Norris handled these situations, with restraint, reflection, and a commitment to his principles. That consistency is perhaps what has kept his image so enduring over the years. It reminds us that strength isn't always about confrontation. Often, it's about knowing when to step back, stay silent, and let your values speak for themselves.